Live from the drama-free true crime destination. No distractions, no detours, just the facts, the fire, and the focus you deserve. This is Saturday night's main event. And a good Saturday evening, everybody. Welcome to Saturday night's main event. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw, and this is Saturday night's main event, The Dirty Dozen. We're taking 12 of the week's most compelling cases and we're breaking them down with depth, clarity, and the drama free storytelling that defines Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Tonight, we're going beyond the headlines. We're looking at the narratives, the testimony, the turning points, and what they reveal about the justice system we all rely on. Let's dive in. Our first of 12 tonight, the DA in a cold case, Lover's Lane murder, pretended to be a police officer. The 22-year-old Lover's Lane murder, actually it's longer than that, but a 22-year-old Lover's Lane murder finally snaps into focus as prosecutors say the suspect wasn't just stalking. He was impersonating law enforcement to get close enough to kill. Prosecutors say a man, now identified as the suspect in the decades-old Lover's Lane homicide, used a fake police persona to approach a couple parked in a secluded area. The victims were later found murdered, and the case went cold for years. Recent investigative work, including a re-examined evidence and new witness accounts, led the DA to name this individual as the prime suspect, with the impersonation detail emerging as a key part of the alleged setup. Let's go there right now to the article courtesy of our good friends at Court TV. More than three decades after a young couple was found dead in their car, this is in Houston, Texas, mind you, a man has been arrested and charged with their murders. Now police are asking for help because they believe there could be more victims. A security guard on patrol on December 23rd, 1990, found a vehicle parked for a long time along a cul-de-sac. Inside the car were two bodies, later identified as 22-year-old Cheryl Hendry and 21-year-old Andy Atkinson. Their deaths, known as the Lover's Lane murders, would go unsolved for nearly 40 years. The car was in the cul-de-sac. It had cigarette butts, so we knew they had been hanging out. They had spent some time there. Cheryl Hendry's sister Shane Henry told station KTRK in a 2025 documentary on the case. The windows were rolled down. There was blood on the door. On Thursday, the Harris County District Attorney announced they had made an arrest in the case. 64-year-old Floyd William Perrott was charged with capital murder. He was taken into custody in Lincoln, Nebraska, and is awaiting extradition to Texas. Harris County DA Sean Terry said at a news conference announcing the arrest, "It gives me so much pride, so much joy to be able to say, we got him." These unsolved murders have weighed so incredibly heavy on these families and our communities for more than 3 decades. That stops today. That stops now. Shane Henry was at the conference, where she offered gratitude to the investigators for their dogged assistance in solving her sister's killing. Hearing that the person responsible has finally been caught doesn't bring her back, and it doesn't erase the pain our family has lived with all these years, she said. But it does bring a sense of relief knowing justice is moving forward and that this person cannot hurt another person again. More than 100 persons of interest were investigated over the last 36 years, investigators said. While Terry refused to offer any specifics about how they linked Perrott to the killings after so long, he did say a tip helps speed things along. While Perrott is facing charges for the deaths of Atkinson and Henry, Terry said that he may be linked to other crimes as well. We believe that there are victims of numerous different types of crimes that are still living with it right now. We need to know the full picture of what Floyd William Perot was doing in our community. Part of what he was doing, Terry said, was impersonating a law enforcement officer. Photos were shared with the media showing a 1980s vehicle that was retrofitted with red and blue lights. Terry said he believed Perot was using the vehicle the night Henry and Atkinson were killed. Any member of the public with information about Perot is asked to contact the Harris County District Attorney's Office. That number is 713 274 5640. 713 274 5640. Callers are asked to mention the Lover's Lane case and leave their name and contact information. Now, what you're looking at right here, before I move onward, is a two shots of Floyd Perot in 88, excuse me, on your left, and 96 on your right. Here now for the details in this case. The impersonation angle is the breakthrough. Investigators say the suspect presented himself as a police officer and using that authority to disarm suspicion and gain control of the scene. Cold case detectives reopened the file after new forensic tools and interviews pointed back to the same individual who had been on the periphery. The DA's office now believes the impersonation wasn't opportunistic. It was part of a pattern of behavior that placed the suspect near similar secluded areas around the same time period. He has been charged with capital murder, but it also signals that prosecutors believe they have enough corroboration to move the case forward. The families of the victims have been notified, and the DA emphasized that this development is the product of years of persistence, not a sudden revelation. So, basically, this is one of those cases where they finally got it, but now it's all about taking him to trial and let's see if they have enough evidence to actually convict. And once again, if you have any information on regarding the Lover's Lane case, make sure you mention it when you call the Harris County District Attorney's Office. Again, that number is 713 274 5640. All right, so that's the first case in our Dirty Dozen. The next case goes to the Justice Serve file. Jeffrey Spence has been convicted of murdering his daughter's boyfriend. A father who claimed to protect his daughter now stands convicted of murder. If I can catch it real quick. All right, let me go. We can all watch this together. A father who claimed he acted to protect his daughter is convicted of murder, with jurors rejecting every self he tried to put between himself and the gun. Now, before I break down the what happened and give you all the details, we are going to watch this verdict together, straight from the courtroom.
Now would be a good time to leave, because this is not a sporting event where you get to yell to your side. This is a court of law, and I expect to be conducted in a court of law. So if you think you have any problem, restrain yourself from outbursts. When the verdict is read, I would ask you to leave the courtroom at this time, okay? Another thing, shortly after the jury went in, they sent out a note that said they needed a computer or wanted a computer to be able to use some of the exhibits on to were in a digital format. That's something we normally just send back there automatically and simply forgot to. I consulted with the attorneys and everybody agreed for us to send a computer back with complete computer. Is that correct with everybody? I didn't want to bring everybody back in and just put that on the record. I understand that's correct.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is everybody here who wants to be here? I won't shortchange you. All right, if everybody's ready, show your ear. I would ask for the vote, and we have already the vote asking for a computer vote to be made a part of the we always do. Just over this 1 second anyway. Before the jury comes out, I want to say this. First off, Calhoun County, y'all been gracious. Sheriff, I want your passwords on call. We appreciate it. I hope we don't ever have to pay your name back up and tip the county, but we'll be available if you do. We really appreciate y'all hospitality. And then all the attorneys, everybody conducted themselves very professionally. You argued about what you needed to argue about, and you did what you needed to argue about. I will say this, I don't know what the verdict is. I've done my best to provide both sides a fair trial as I could. The side that wins will probably think otherwise. Well, the fight side that loses will probably think otherwise, but I assure you my best, okay? That being said, if the jury's ready, I'll be ready. I believe we have to wait back. I've received the notice of your verdict. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Is that a unanimous verdict?
yes, sir.
Do y'all have that reduced to writing?
Yes.
Could you pass it to Bailiff and check the form, please? All right. I'll read the verdicts in order that they come, unless somebody else wants to prove it. All right. We, the jury, find the defendant Jeffrey Dean Spence not guilty of capital murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Jeffrey Dean Spence guilty of first-degree murder. We, the jury, find the defendant Jeffrey Dean Spence not guilty of manslaughter. All right. Anything else before I release the jury?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you for your service. I'm going to impose sentence this time. You're welcome to stay for that if you like, or you're free to go, whichever one you want to do. Like, if you need an excuse for work or anything else, you can get a call to the clerk's office. I have no reason to think you'd have any consequence whatsoever for your jury service. If you wish to talk about your jury service, you're free to go. If you don't wish to talk about your jury service, tell me you don't wish to talk, move on, thank you. see us, get in touch some court official, and we'll take care of how much that would be any problem whatsoever. But any of you go can leave now, or if you wish to stay, you can stay, whatever you want to do, okay? I hope you ain't rushing back to work anyway. That's sad life. You want to rush back to work anyway. All right. This jury has found Mr. Jeffrey Dean guilty of trial of first-degree murder. Punishment for first-degree murder in this state of Mississippi does not give the court any leeway. The sentence, life sentence. The court hereby sentence you, Jeffrey Dean Spence, term life in prison. In the Kentucky District Court of Corrections for murder of Kirby Carpenter. And you'll be in custody of the Tippah County Sheriff, Wake Transportation, proper location, okay? All right, anything else from anyone?
No, right.
All right, court meeting is thank y'all.
Sir, please remain seated. Sir, please have a seat.
Not the verdict and the sentencing. Here's a breakdown out of Ripley, Massachusetts. A Mississippi man was sentenced to life in prison immediately after a jury found him guilty of killing his daughter's boyfriend. 67-year-old Jeffrey Spence was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Kirby Carpenter, 36. The jury acquitted him of charges of capital murder and manslaughter. Judge John Kelly Luther immediately handed down the mandatory life sentence after the jury rendered its verdict. This was the second jury to consider the facts in the case. His first trial ended with a hung jury in 2025. Carpenter was dating Jeffrey Spence's daughter, Caitlin Spence, at the time of his death. Caitlin Spence pleaded guilty to accessory to murder in an agreement with prosecutors that had her testify at both of her father's trials. Caitlin Spence told both juries that her father confessed his involvement to her after she found Carpenter's body. Caitlin Spence described her father as being aggressive and short with her after her boyfriend's death, saying that it wasn't her job to find his killer. Prosecutors told the jury that Jeffrey Spence was motivated by money and greed. The victim was known to carry large amounts of money with him, as well as a bag containing $200,000 to $300,000 in cash, silver, or gold. Jeffrey Spence's defense tried to paint Carpenter as an abusive drug dealer. Jeffrey Spence's other daughter, Carolyn Aquio, also testified at his trial. She told the jury she comes from a criminal family and she called her parents Bonnie and Clyde and no longer had a relationship with them. Karen Spence, Jeffrey's wife and Caitlin's mother, pleaded guilty to grand larceny after the fact for her role in the crime 1 day before jury selection of her case. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. So, we got, so to recap all that, mom's doing 10 years for grand larceny after the fact. We've got daughter, she's doing time for being an accessory to murder, and now 67-year-old dad has just been convicted and sentenced to life in prison for murder. What can I say? What can I say except just two words? Justice served. Period. Next up, we got a brand new Brian Kohlberger update. We have new videos showing Kohlberger swapping license plates and chatting. A new release footage shows Brian Kohlberger calmly swapping license plates and chatting with a stranger. It's a window into his movements after the murders, and a detailed prosecutors say speaks to his calculated behavior, not panic. So here's what happened before we get to it. Newly surfaced. Let me get the article pull up first. Now, a newly surfaced video shows Brian Kohlberger in a parking lot switching out the license plates for his car and casually talking with another person. This footage was captured after the murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Prosecutors say the timing and deliberate plate swap are relevant to understanding his actions during the investigation. Kohlberger, who has pleaded guilty and is serving 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, is no longer contesting the murders. But the video adds context to his post-crime movements. All right, here's the article in question. We're in Pullman, Washington. Brian appears calm and friendly in a new video showing him registering his white Hyundai Elantra in Washington state after he killed 4 people. 31-year-old Kohlberger pleaded guilty to murdering 4 University of Idaho students in their Moscow, Idaho home in the early hours of November 13, 2022. Kohlberger was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms for the murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin in a deal that saw him avoid a potential death sentence. The new video obtained first by YouTube creators Christie's Chaos. See if you guys, Christie's Chaos, check her out and subscribe to her channel. Christie's Chaos shows Kohlberger walking to a Washington State DMV to change the registration for his car. His white Hyundai Elantra, which was spotted on surveillance cameras near the crime scene, had Pennsylvania plates at the time of the murders. Kohlberger was a PhD candidate and teaching assistant at Washington State University at the time of the killings and had moved to study there from his home in eastern Pennsylvania. On November 18, 2022, just 5 days after he stabbed 4 people to death, he arrived at the DMV to change his license plates. Kohlberger can be heard on the surveillance video telling the agent, "I definitely need to get my license plate changed," before going back and forth about the details of his car. He confirms his white Hyundai is an SE model. I wish it was the Sport, though," he said. He engages the DMV agent in small talk, first talking about car model popularity before Kohlberger brings up baseball, noting that the employee is wearing a San Francisco Giants shirt. "I'm actually from the East Coast," Kohlberger said. "I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm hoping you guys don't judge." Kohlberger reveals he moved to the area for school. "Yeah, PhD, definitely not an undergrad," he noted. He said that he noticed a big difference in moving west. The employee responds, I would say safe, but the whole Moscow thing makes it feel less safe right now." Towards the end of the conversation, Kohlberger notes that he's hopefully going to see family soon. He was arrested at his family home in Pennsylvania, where he had returned to celebrate the Christmas holiday. I do like Pullman, but I'm not entirely sure I want to stay. Koberger said, it depends on if I can get a job. Koberger now resides in solitary confinement in Idaho, where he is serving his life sentences. Other videos released of Kohlberger in the days after the murders have shown him engaging in seemingly mundane activities, like shopping at Costco. Now, again, that the video is post-crime, not pre-crime, which matters. Prosecutors frame it as part of his behavior while law enforcement was actively searching for a suspect. The plate swap is deliberate, not rushed. He moves with calm, methodical precision, which prosecutors argue undercuts any claim of panic or confusion. The casual conversation is striking, given the gravity of what had already occurred. Investigators says it shows the ability to mask stress and maintain a facade of normalcy. This footage was not central to the conviction, or in this case, the plea deal, since Kohlberger ultimately pleaded guilty, but it reinforces the prosecution's narrative of calculated conduct. The release of the video is now tied to a public records request. It's not a new development, but his sentence is final and unchangeable. Yep. So again, I ask you to subscribe to Christie's Chaos, and you'll probably get more information regarding Kohlberger there. There. So shout out to Christie's Chaos for supplying said video that adds to what we already know. Next up, in an interview with her regarding her mother's kidnapping, NBC Today Show co-host Savannah Guthrie says, it's just totally terrifying. Savannah Guthrie breaks her silence with raw, unfiltered fear. A daughter living inside every family's nightmare as the search for her kidnapped mother stretches on with no answers. Here's what's happening. Savannah spoke publicly about her mother Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping, describing the ordeal as totally terrifying. Her comments come as investigators continue working the case, with the family maintaining a united front in Arizona. Savannah, who stepped away from the Today Show to be with her siblings, has become the family spokesperson, balancing public updates, private grief, and the pressure of a national spotlight. And one can only feel for her. We're in New York City, my old stomping ground, my birthplace. Anchor Savannah Guthrie is sharing new details about her mother's kidnapping and her future in a multi-part interview with Hoda Kotb for NBC. Savannah Guthrie was deeply emotional as she talked about learning her mother Nancy had disappeared. The 84-year-old Nancy was last seen on January 31st at her home outside of Tucson, Arizona. When Savannah first got the call from her sister that their mother was missing, she said she was confused. We thought she must have had some kind of medical episode of the night, and that somehow the paramedics came, and because the back doors were propped open, and that didn't make any sense, Savannah said. Savannah described her mother as frail and in tremendous pain from a bad back. On a good day, she said her mother could make it to the mailbox to check her mail. It made no sense that the octogenarian had simply walked away. Even more disturbing were other details in the house. Her purse and phone had been left behind. The doors were propped open. There was blood on the front doorstep, and the home surveillance camera had been ripped off. Investigators released videos recovered from that home security system, which showed a masked person wearing a backpack and tampering with the camera before it shut off. It's just absolutely terrifying. It's just totally terrifying, and I can't imagine that is who she saw standing over her bed, Savannah said. Savannah broke down in tears, recounting a conversation she had with her brother, who first suggested that their mother had been taken. 1 second, guys. There you go. He said, I think she's been kidnapped for ransom. Savannah recounted to Hoda Kotb, I said, do you think because of me? I'm so sorry if it is me. I'm so sorry. Addressing the ransom notes the family received in the days and weeks after the matriarch's disappearance. Savannah said she never saw most of the notes, which were not considered credible. She said that the videos she made addressing the kidnappers directly addressed 2 notes that she believed to be real. It's surreal. How is it possible that we are having to make a video speaking to a kidnapper who took an 84-year-old woman in the dead of night in her pajamas with no shoes, without her medicine? This little person? The investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has continued with few updates from detectives, though DNA samples were collected from gloves found near the house. Nothing has matched the entries in the national database. Savannah said she and her family are being patient and trying to have faith, but are desperate for answers. We cannot be at peace without knowing, and someone can do the right thing. It is never too late to do the right thing. Savannah announced she will be returning to her role as anchor of NBC's Today on April 6th, though she warned she might be changed. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can belong anymore. I don't know if I belong anymore, but I would like to try. She said, I'm not going to be the same, but maybe it's like that whole poem, more beautiful in the broken places. Wow. Here's all the details. Savannah's words carry so much weight because she has largely stayed measured and factual throughout the investigation. This is one of the first times she's allowed the emotional reality to surface. The fear she describes is grounded in the uncertainty. No suspect identified, no confirmed sightings, and no clear timeline for answers. Her statement reinforces the family's unity, with Savannah, Annie, and Cameron living together near their mother's home and coordinating directly with investigators. The Guthries have put significant resources behind the search, including $1 million family reward and a $500,000 donation to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Investigators have reiterated that the home was processed early and has been available to the family since the first week, a detail Savannah has echoed to keep the public narrative accurate. Her fear is not sensational, it's situational. Unresolved personal crisis. And all I can do from this point is not only pray for Savannah Guthrie and her family, but keep doing what I'm doing here, and that's putting out the information. Hopefully somebody knows something, somebody will figure out, will be able to turn in some kind of information that will bring Nancy Guthrie home safe. So again, this is the best thing I can do. My end. For those of you who just joined, who are just getting in on this case for the first time, here's what we know. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years of age, born January 27th of 1942. She has brown hair and blue eyes, stands 5 feet 4 inches, weighs around 150 pounds. The The Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI's Phoenix Field Office, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department in Arizona are investigating the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, last seen at her residence in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, on the evening of January 31st, 2026. She is considered to be a vulnerable adult who has difficulty walking, has a pacemaker, and needs daily medication for a heart condition. The images that you have seen early in the investigation show an armed individual appearing to have tampered with a camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door on the morning of her disappearance. The suspect is described as a male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", with an average build. In the video, he's wearing a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack. The FBI seeks information that will lead to the identity of this individual. And the FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading to the location of Nancy Guthrie and or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in her disappearance. As I've mentioned, the family is offering $1 million for that very same information, and they've already made a donation to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the amount of $500,000. Anyway, if there's anyone who has any information concerning this case, please contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-225-5324. You can also contact your local FBI office, or you can submit your tip online at tips.fbi.gov. And as I always say, no matter what missing person's case, whether it's an adult or children, if you see something, please say something. That way we can do something. Let's bring Nancy Guthrie home safe. Next on this docket, a Florida man is charged with manslaughter after encouraging his girlfriend to kill herself. Yeah. Why would he do that? Your guess is as good as mine. A Florida man now charged with manslaughter after prosecutors say he didn't just fail to stop a tragedy, he actively encouraged his girlfriend to end her life. A man in Florida charged with manslaughter after investigators concluded he repeatedly encouraged his girlfriend to kill herself. According to the sheriff's office, the woman died by suicide following a series of messages and conversations in which the suspect allegedly pushed her toward the act instead of seeking help or intervention. Detectives say the evidence shows a pattern of coercive, manipulative behavior that directly contributed to her death. Let's look at this article. We're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A Florida man is being held without bond after investigators say he pushed his girlfriend to take her own life. 41-year-old Miguel Hernandez is charged with manslaughter in the death of his girlfriend, 37-year-old Mary McConigal, who died from a single gunshot wound to the head. While a medical examiner ruled McConigal's death a suicide, Hernandez has been charged under the manslaughter statute under the theory that he encouraged her to do it. Deputies with the Broward County Sheriff's Office were called to the home Hernandez shared with McGonigal on January 24, 2026 for a reported shooting. When they arrived, they saw McGonigal lying on the ground with a large pool of thick, clumpy blood surrounding her head. Officers who responded to the scene described seeing Hernandez holding her body with blood on his hands, clearly distraught, crying, sweating, and physically shaking. In an interview at the scene, Hernandez told police that McGonigal had a history of threatening suicide during arguments and allegedly admitted that the couple had a tiff in the moments before the shooting. He also reportedly told detectives that his girlfriend had a history of substance abuse that likely required rehab and recounted a previous incident the week before when McGonigal allegedly grabbed his weapon. Hernandez allegedly claimed that on the night in question, McGonigal grabbed his gun off the bed and shot herself before he could intervene. But investigative surveillance video from inside the couple's home told a very different story. The video allegedly shows a brief argument followed by Hernandez racking the slide on the gun and handing it to his girlfriend before yelling at her. Go ahead and do it. Police say he repeatedly urged her to kill herself in the moments before she pulled the trigger. When officers confronted Hernandez with the surveillance video, he said he admitted making statements, but said he was calling her bluff and did not believe she would actually fire the weapon, police said. He denied wanting her to kill herself and denied intentionally assisting in her death. McGonigal was pronounced dead on February 9th, 2026. In 2014, Michelle Carter was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in Massachusetts in the death of her boyfriend, Conrad Roy III, after urging him to kill himself in a series of text messages. Carter was sentenced to 15 months in jail, but was released several months early in January 2020. Prosecutors urged the judge to keep Hernandez behind bars without bail, citing previous convictions on drug charges and criminal mischief. At the time of the shooting, Hernandez was out of jail on pretrial release for a drug case. Hernandez has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and is due to return to court on this case on May 28th. Here's the breakdown of the details. The charge is rooted in Florida's assisted suicide statute, which allows prosecutors to pursue manslaughter when someone intentionally encourages or pressures another person to take their own life. Investigators reviewed extensive digital evidence, including texts, calls, and social media messages that allegedly show the suspect urging the victim to follow through. Sheriff's officials emphasized the power imbalance, describing the suspect's behavior as exploitative and emotionally manipulative rather than passive or detached. The case mirrors a growing national trend where prosecutors are increasingly willing to treat coercive encouragement as criminal conduct when it contributes to a suicide. The suspect has not yet entered a plea, and his defense has not publicly responded to the allegations. Authorities use the announcement to remind the public that anyone expressing suicidal thoughts needs immediate support, not pressure or provocation. And that is so true. In fact, there's not a day that goes by where I'm watching The Price is Right and I watch Drew Carey at the end of the show telling us to take care of our mental health, and that is something that is no joke. It's not a joke. So I'm saying this to everyone within the sound of my voice, watching this podcast here on YouTube, whether it be live or whether it'll be a replay of this. Please, if you need help, talk to someone. If you need help, get that help. It's good for you, and you're better off here than what anybody else will tell you. And that's my PSA, my personal PSA. Now we are going to go back to the courtroom in Massachusetts for the verdict in the death by antifreeze trial. A forensic poisoning case that's gripped Massachusetts for months now sits in the hands of a jury. A slow, methodical anti-freeze murder trial where intent, timing, and toxicology are everything. So we are going to go. We're going to watch this verdict and break it down and see which way this thing goes. This is the verdict in the death by antifreeze trial, Massachusetts versus Judy Church. Okay. See what's happening here. Um, what we have is where we're at already is the sentencing. So I'm gonna start here with this. A Massachusetts woman has been convicted on charges she murdered her live-in boyfriend by poisoning him with antifreeze. 67-year-old Judy Church was found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of 55-year-old Leroy Fowler, who died on November 13th, 2022. The jury deliberated for more than 8 hours before returning a verdict. So now I'm gonna stop right there, and now we're gonna go right to the sentencing phase. Okay, so here I go. I'm gonna mute myself, and the next thing you're gonna hear is the sentencing for Judy Church.
Court, all rise.
No.
This court is now in session. Please be seated.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Calling our first matter on today's list, Commonwealth versus Judy Church, 2023 CR 14. This matter is scheduled today for sentencing hearing. Ms. Church is present, accompanied by her attorneys. Would all counsel please identify yourselves for the record, starting with the Commonwealth?
Good morning, Your Honor. A.J. Camellia of Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. Camellia.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jessica Strasnick for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. Strasnick.
Morning, Your Honor. Stanley Norkunis with Ms. Morrissey on behalf of, and Attorney Scully on behalf of Ms. Church.
Good morning, Mr. Norkunis, Ms. Morrissey.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Scully. Good morning to Ms. Church. On Monday, March 30th, which was the 10th day of trial, the jury returned a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder on theories of deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity or cruelty. That offense carries a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Nevertheless, I will hear from both counsel. I will hear any impact statements that Mr. Fowler's family members wish to make, and I will hear from Ms. Church if she wishes to say anything. We will start with Commonwealth. Mr. Camellia.
Tim Carbone would like to make the first impact statement. She's going to bring up Candace Eaton with her just for a little help.
She may. She may come up. Ms. Carbone may come up with Ms. Eaton, and they may both take seats to my right. Ms. Carbone, I want very much to hear what you have to tell me. I just want to remind you of what I'm sure Mr. Camilio and Mr. Strasnick have told you, which is this is your opportunity to address me about the impact that your brother's death has had upon you and your family. Direct your remarks to me. I am your audience, not Ms. Church. And with that, would you state your name, and then I'd like to hear anything you'd like to tell me.
Jamie Carbone.
Go ahead, Ms. Carbone.
We are addressing the court to share how the crime committed by Judy Church has impacted our family's life. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this statement as part of your consideration during the sentencing. Since the murder of our loved one, Leroy Fowler Jr., our lives have been permanently affected the way we have been affected.
Our lives have been profoundly affected. The ways we have all been affected have been immense. Sleepless nights, grief beyond explanation, anger, sadness, confusion, the list goes on. We all have navigated our grief in our own ways, not knowing how we will feel one day to the next. Beyond the roller coaster of emotion, we all have our children that we've had to explain this situation to, and we have had to try to help them through this as well, which has been something indescribable. To not only try to explain to a child, but to help them get through their grief when we as adults have trouble handling our own pain we are experiencing. Losing a loved one is painful no matter what, but when it happens at the hands of someone else, it brings a pain like you've never felt before. Leroy is deeply missed by our family beyond anything we could ever say in words. Leroy was a father, a son, a brother, a grandfather, an uncle, a cousin, and a friend to many. Throughout the course of this trial, a picture was painted by the defense of Leroy that didn't capture who he truly was. Leroy was a happy-go-lucky man that truly loved life, his dogs, and going on adventures. Whether it was going on camping trips with his family, catching frogs with his nieces and nephews, laughing by the fire, or feeling the freedom and love of riding his motorcycle. As a kid, he was a great baseball player, which was where he fell in love with the game and later taught his son and nephews how to play. The whole family would love to get together and play baseball in the summertime. Leroy would also play street hockey and enjoy fishing. Another one of his enjoyments was tinkering with bikes. He also loved jumping in the car on a weekend with his sisters and spending a whole day yard sailing to see what treasures they could all find. Leroy was a hard-working man, a man that would do anything to help anyone. If you needed him, he would be there, no questions asked. One thing Leroy took pride in was the title he earned later in life, a grandfather. He loved spending time with his grandson, but due to his life being taken too soon, he never got to meet his most recent grandson. We, the family, recommend the court impose the maximum sentence allowed by law, life without parole, due to the extreme cruelty and atrocious nature of this murder. Thank you for taking the time to consider our statement and allowing our voices to be heard in this process and to share the impact of this terrible loss our family has endured.
Ms. Eaton, would you tell me your full name, please?
Candace Eaton.
And what is your relationship to Ms. Carbone and or Mr. Fowler?
I'm her daughter-in-law.
You're Ms. Carbone's daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for assisting Ms. Carbone. Ms. Carbone, I thank you very much for your statement. I very much wanted to hear what you have to say. I can see the anguish that you're still experiencing now. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing those remarks with me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Camellia.
Your Honor, Barbara Randall also wrote something that she would like the court to hear, but asked if I would read it. So, with the court's permission, I'll do that now.
Is Ms. Randall in attendance?
She is, Your Honor.
Ms. Randall? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Camellia.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Barbara Randall. I'm here to speak about the loss of Leroy Fowler, a man who was deeply in whose absence has left a space in our heart that can never be filled. Leroy was more in his courtroom. He was a partner, father, grandfather, brother, and someone who would give the shirt off his back to anyone in need. If a friend called, Leroy showed up, no questions asked. He could build just about anything with his hands, and he took pride in fixing things, making something broken whole again. He loved riding his motorcycle, feeling that freedom, and living life in his own way. What we had together may not have been a conventional love story, but it was ours. Through every up and down, every challenge, we still chose each other, and we were happy. Leroy loved the simple things, like our weekend yard sailing trips. Those were our moments, walking side by side, looking for treasures we didn't need but somehow couldn't pass up. Leroy always thought he was finding something valuable, even if the rest of us knew it probably wasn't. But that was Leroy. He could see worth where others didn't, and he brought the same outlook to the people in his life. When Judy Church took Leroy's life, she didn't just take him from me, she took him away from his children and grandchildren, and my grandchildren who looked at him as their own. She took away the love, the time, and the memories they should have had with him. The fun times, the impulsive trips, the laughter we all shared together. And she didn't just take his life, she made him suffer. Leroy's final days were filled with confusion, pain, and fear. He was left struggling, not understanding what was happening to his own body, fighting for his life as it was slowly being taken from him. No one deserves to suffer like that. No one deserves to have their life ended in fear and pain at the hands of someone he thought he could trust. That is something we will never forget. She also took away our future. Leroy and I were still writing our story, and we will never know how it would have unfolded, because that choice was stolen from us. Today, we ask the court to consider not only the loss of Leroy's life, but the suffering he endured and the pain that has been left behind for all of us. We ask for the maximum sentence. Because while Judy Church will continue to live, even if it is behind the walls of a jail cell, we will never get Leroy back. She will wake up with each day with her life ahead of her in some form. We do not have that, and Leroy does not have that. She will never truly understand the pain she put him through or the depths of the loss that she has caused. Leroy was loved, he mattered, and he deserves so much more than what was done to him. Nothing will ever replace him, but we ask that justice reflect the seriousness of what was taken, not just his life, but his future and ours. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Randall, for those remarks. I appreciate them. Mr. Camellia.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth moves for sentencing and would ask that the court impose a sentence of life without parole in the state prison. Even if this sentence were not required by law, it would be the appropriate sentence in this case. As you just heard in Ms. Randall's statement, Leroy Fowler died a slow, painful, and what must have been a really terrifying death at the hands of the defendant, Judy Church. No sentence can return Mr. Fowler to his family or make up for any loss that they are now suffering, but a sentence of life without parole is the only fair and just punishment under these circumstances, and I would ask the court to impose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Narconis or Mr. Scully, who is speaking on behalf of the defense? Mr. Scully.
Briefly, Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity. As you know, the defense filed a sentencing memorandum, which we feel is an important part of the record. Would waive oral argument, but we memorandum at this time.
And I've read the memo just minutes ago, and I delayed coming opportunity to have anything else, Mr. Scully?
No, we filed a notice, and we filed a motion, Judge, which we would ask the court to allow.
And have you spoken with Ms. Church to say anything?
I have spoken with her. I have advised her, given that we will be appealing everything here, not to say anything at this time. There will be ongoing litigation.
That's as stated. I have no discretion regarding the sentence to be imposed on a verdict of first-degree murder by deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity or cruelty. I am required to sentence Ms. Church to life in prison with the possibility of parole, but that is the exact question. The jury verdict is finding that the Commonwealth had proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Ms. Church delivered Leroy Fowler with ethylene glycol, presumably by putting an antifreeze-like substance in his Powerade drink. She then deliberately delayed calling 911 to get him the immediate medical assistance he so desperately needed, while she, in my view, callously and heartlessly videotaped Mr. Fowler's suffering. By doing so, the life of Mr. Fowler just days after his birthday, and presumably well before he would have died of natural causes, taking him away from his family, his friends, his loved ones, his grandchildren, his children. Both Ms. Carbone and Ms. Randall have spoken eloquently about the impact of his loss on that extended group of people who loved him. By Ms. Church's actions, basically a heinous act of murder, one which saw Fowler linger for 2 days in increasingly dire medical distress, to the point where he was finally declared brain dead, and his family had to make that wrenching decision to terminate his intubation and let him pass. Ms. Church is fully deserving of the most serious sentence that can be imposed under the laws of our Commonwealth, and I therefore impose that sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. I will waive all fees with the exception of the victim witness fee. Ms. Tordo. Is there an agreement on the, well, never mind. Go ahead, Ms. Tordo. Thank you.
I believe the date of arrest was December 22nd, 2022.
All right.
I think so. Yes.
Ms. Church, please stand. Judy Church, on indictment 2023 CR 14001, on which the jury found you guilty of first-degree murder with both deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity or cruelty, you will hearken to the sentence that the court against you. Having duly considered your offense, the court orders that you be punished by confinement for the term of your natural life without the possibility for parole, and that the sentence will be executed upon you in and within the precincts of the Massachusetts Correctional Institution at Framingham. The minimus shall reflect credit in the amount of 1,197 days, reflecting the time that you've been held on this case since December 22nd of 2022. You stand committed in execution of the sentence now. The statutory victim witness fee of $90 will be imposed. The other fees that would be applicable include a $110 DNA fee and a $150 legal counsel fee, if applicable. Those will be waived by the court. I must advise you, ma'am, that you have the right to appeal from the trial of this case to the appeals court. And if you choose to do so, you must do so within 30 days and in writing. You're all set, ma'am.
We will be in recess. Thank you all.
Court, all rise. Court stands in recess.
And that ends the death by antifreeze trial. I mentioned that already read that she was convicted at this point. And then she was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole at her sentencing on April 2nd. On November 11, 2022, Church called 911 to report that Fowler must have ingested something, quote unquote, and was pulling the bedroom apart with a bloody nose. When paramedics arrived, they found the victim with an altered mental status and in medical distress. He was taken to a hospital and died days later. When he was removed from life support, when doctors told Fowler's family they believed his kidney damage was the result of antifreeze poisoning, they immediately contacted the police. When police interviewed Church at her home, she refused to let detectives inside the door, choosing to speak with them outside. She denied that Fowler ate or drank anything before the incident. Church's adult son, Douglas Church, suggested that Fowler had suffered from carbon monoxide poisoning. Detectives spoke with Fowler's family, who said that the victim had been in a relationship with Church for years, but that he also had a second girlfriend. Fowler's stepson told officers that Fowler previously told him that he thought Church could be poisoning him because every time he leaves Judy's residence, he feels better. The stepson also told police that Church had offered him $10,000 to kidnap Fowler from his second girlfriend's house, tie him up, and bring him back to her. Fowler's family told investigators that Church took out a life insurance policy on the victim approximately 1 year before his death. So there you have it. The death by antifreeze trial is done, and the sentencing is life in prison without the chance of parole. A cold clinical poison case ends with a cold clinical reaction. Judy Church showing no emotion as the judge hands down a life sentence for killing, not attempting to, but killing her longtime partner with antifreeze. Her lack of reaction was notable, especially after a trial defined by scientific testimony rather than emotional outbursts. Observers said she remained still, eyes forward, offering no apology or statement. The life sentence reflects Massachusetts law where murder by poisoning carries severe penalties due to the deliberate, concealed nature of the act. Prosecutors emphasized the methodical pattern, arguing she administered antifreeze over time, not in a single moment of impulse. The victim's survival was central, allowing him to testify and describe the sudden decline in his health. Testimony jurors later said was persuasive. Defense attorneys maintained their position that the state relied on circumstantial evidence and disputed toxicology, but the jury rejected those arguments. The judge highlighted the breach of trust, noting that poisoning someone you live with and care for is among the most calculated forms of homicide. With sentencing complete, Church begins serving life with no chance of parole, though prosecutors have signaled they will oppose any thought of a future release. So with that, Judy Church will spend the rest of her life behind bars, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is justice served. From the end of one trial, we start taking a look at the beginning of the next one. A trial date is set for a former American Idol contestant charged with the murder of his wife. A once rising singer with national TV fame now heads toward a murder trial date. A fall from spotlight to courtroom. Say it was within violence, celebrity. A former reality contestant appeared in court this past Monday morning, and sat silently as a judge set a date for him to stand trial for his wife. Caleb Flynn has pleaded not guilty to multiple charges of murder and tampering with evidence in the death of his wife, Ashley Flynn, who was found dead in the couple's home on February 16th. On Monday, Judge Janine Ann Pratt scheduled Caleb Flynn's trial to begin April 28th after his attorney said he was planning to file any waiver of his right to a speedy trial. Investigators were first called to the couple's Tip City home after Caleb Flynn called 911 and reported that there was a burglary in progress and his wife had been shot. But detectives say a thorough investigation revealed there was no burglary and have accused Caleb Flynn of attempting to stage the scene. Caleb Flynn, who describes himself as a music pastor, appeared on the 12th season of the reality television series American Idol, but did not advance past the first round in Hollywood, California. A judge previously set Caleb Flynn's bond at $3.5 million. He remains behind bars. Caleb Flynn did not speak during Monday's court appearance. His attorney, Paul Watkins, acknowledged that he had filed a motion requesting a gag order in the case, but requested a continuance before arguing the issue. The parties are scheduled to return on April 6th for a status conference, when they will also discuss the proposed non-dissemination order. Until then, Pratt asked the attorneys to continue not speaking to anyone about the case. An obituary posted online described Ashley Flynn as a caring and dedicated mother to 2 daughters, a substitute teacher, and a 7th grade volleyball coach. So a short breakdown of what happened. A trial date's been set for the former American Idol contestant charged with murdering his wife. Prosecutors allege he staged the scene to look like a suicide, but investigators say the evidence points to a deliberate killing inside the couple's home. After months of pretrial hearings, motions, and forensic review, the judge formally placed the case on the calendar, clearing the way for a full jury trial. His TV pass is not a part of the charges, but it has shaped public opinion. The court has already issued reminders that the jurors must judge only the evidence, not the notoriety. Prosecutors argued the scene was staged, citing inconsistencies between the physical evidence and the defense account of what happened that night. Forensic analysis is expected to be central, including the trajectory, bloodstain interpretation, and digital evidence from phones and home devices. The defense maintains the death was inflicted by burglars, and has signaled they will challenge the state's reconstruction of the scene. The judge set the trial date after resolving key motions, including what expert testimony will be allowed and how much of the couple's relationship history can be introduced. Family members of the victim were present in court, some expressing relief that the case is finally moving toward a jury. And the trial is expected to draw significant media attention given the defendant's past visibility and the contested nature of the evidence. This is going to be one of those cases where everybody is going to be watching with bated breath. See what happens next. Another poisoning case on the docket, but only this time a man who was accused of poisoning a pregnant woman gets a charge dismissed. One charge. In a reversal of a high-stake poison case, a man accused of trying to kill a pregnant woman is no longer being charged with one of those charges. Here's the article. This is in Woburn, Massachusetts. A man accused of tricking a woman into taking abortion pills after he got her pregnant succeeded in getting one of the charges against him dismissed. Middlesex Superior Court Judge Karen Goldenberg granted Robert Kawada's motion to dismiss the charge of attempted poisoning he faced, but upheld the charge of assault and battery on a family or household member. Kawada also faces a charge of assault and battery on a pregnant person. He has pleaded not guilty. Kawada and a woman identified only as complaining witness in court documents had met up and had unprotected sex 3 times before the woman became pregnant. The woman told police that Kawada was initially supportive when she planned to keep the baby. Kawada had 2 children previously. So the woman, she said, asked him for advice about diet and nutrition. Prosecutors say Kawada told the alleged victim that she needed to take iron supplements and gave her pills he said were vitamin C and iron. After taking some of the pills, the woman said she suffered severe cramping and bleeding. She went to the hospital where doctors told her the fetus was still alive. When she told that to Kawada, prosecutors said he encouraged her to take more iron pills, but the woman demurred, saying she wanted to talk to a doctor first. Shortly before Kawada was due to come over, the alleged victim said she got a call from someone purporting to be a nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital who encouraged her to take iron supplements. This time, after taking the pills she was allegedly offered by Kawada, the woman suffered a miscarriage. She brought one of the pills she hadn't taken to police, who tested it and confirmed it was not iron or vitamin C, but rather misoprostol, a drug used to end pregnancies. In a motion asking for the charges to be dismissed, Kawada's attorney argued that the defendant never poisoned the alleged victim. In her written order dismissing the charge, Goldenberg said that while the state did not present sufficient evidence that the pills the alleged victim were given were misoprostol, which does constitute a poison, the pills were not mixed with any food, drink, or other medicine as required by the wording of the statute. The order also notes that for all charges, the word victim refers to the adult woman because the fetus was not viable at the time of the miscarriage. But Goldenberg refused to dismiss the charge of domestic assault and battery over Kawada's arguments that his relationship with the alleged victim did not rise to the level of substantive dating relationship as required by law. While these facts do not overwhelmingly suggest a serious dating relationship, it is enough to satisfy the probable cause standard. Goldenberg wrote that, and it will be for the fact finder at trial to determine whether they had a substantive dating relationship. Kawada's trial is scheduled to begin on October 19th. So actually this is all in Massachusetts, and we're going to find out exactly what this case will become with any more charges being dismissed as we push toward the October date. Next up, a kindergartner and a woman killed in a targeted attack near a Texas school have been identified. A kindergarten child and a woman who lose their lives in what Texas police call a targeted attack just steps from a school. A shooting defined by precision, not randomness. What happened here? Police in Texas have identified the victims in a deadly shooting near a school that left a kindergarten-aged child and an adult woman dead. Investigators say that the attack was targeted, not random, and unfolded near Bowie Elementary School in San Antonio. The shooter opened fire on the pair in a vehicle, killing both before fleeing the scene. The school briefly went into lockdown as officers secured the area and began the investigation. Here's the article, courtesy of People Magazine's crime All right, so I'll just go straight to the article because I pretty much gave you the what you need to know. The victims are involved in a recent shooting near a high school in Texas have been identified by police. 30-year-old Raisa Fatukila and 6-year-old Nafi Mbui were shot and killed in the 6100 block Belknap by John, also 30. Premeditated and targeted attack on Friday, March 27th. That's according to the Haltram City Police Department in a Monday, March 30th press release. Although police did not share the exact relationship between the individuals, authorities previously called the situation a domestic dispute. They definitely know each other, and we believe they have some kind of family relationship, Sergeant Rick Alexander of the Haltom City Police Department said on Friday per Fox 4. Shout out to Fox 4. Police said on Monday that John lured the victims to the location under the pretense of providing money, where he carried out an ambush he had carefully planned in advance. Investigators also confirmed there was an ongoing custody dispute between John and Raisa. That I'm using her first name instead of her last. At the time of the fatal shootings, John is accused of shooting Raisa and Matthew in the parking lot of Birdville ISD's football stadium, located in Haltom City, around 4:30 p.m. local time on Friday, before turning the gun on himself and later dying at a hospital. The suspect was allegedly experiencing some extreme grief after the death of his father and had also expressed concerning thoughts related to death, police said. Based on the evidence, detectives have concluded this was a spontaneous incident, but a deliberate act of violence. Release. Matthew was identified as a kindergarten student at Cheney Hills Elementary, a school in the district, by Birdville ISD officials, according to station WFAA. Shout out to them as well. School officials said crisis counselors would be available to speak with students and staff for as long as necessary, according to the outlet. People magazine reached out to Birdville ISD for comment, but it did not immediately receive a response. Birdville ISD said it was heartbroken that this has occurred in our community, and we are working closely with Haltom City Police as they investigate this incident. Friends of this tragedy, the City Police Department will not be releasing any further information related to this incident. This decision is intended to allow those impacted the space and privacy needed to grieve and begin the process of healing. Okay. So my only commentary about this case, other than everything that has happened in the case, is this public service announcement. If you or someone you know are experiencing domestic violence, help is a phone call away. You ask to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The number is 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233, or go to www.thehotline.org. All calls are totally confidential, and the hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in more than 170 languages. You do not have to be another statistic. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233, or go to www.thehotline.org. And we go to the next one. A man charged with murder following discovery of burned human remains, according to police. A grim discovery in a burned out area leads straight to a murder charge. They say the condition of the remains shows someone tried to destroy both evidence and identity. A man has been charged with murder after police discovered burned human remains in a remote area. Officers were called to the scene after reports of a fire, and once the blaze was extinguished, investigators found what they confirmed to be human remains. Detectives quickly identified a suspect based on evidence at the scene and subsequent interviews. He was arrested and charged with murder as the investigation continues. All right. Here's the article. This is Joseph Dexter Taylor you're looking at. A California man has been charged with murder after authorities say burned human remains were discovered on his property earlier this month. 52-year-old Joseph Dexter Taylor appeared in Butte County Superior Court on a charge of murder, according to a March 26 press release from the Butte County District Attorney's Office. He also faces a separate charge of being a felon in possession of a separate case, also according to that same release. Taylor is in custody after two individuals called 911 on March 21st, reporting that they had discovered what they believed to be a human skull and other skeletal remains on his property on Ricky Road in the rural Hurlton area east of Oroville in California. According to the district attorney's office, the two men told investigators that Taylor arrived at their home in the early morning hours of March 20th, appearing agitated and talking about a cremation. They also noted marks on his legs. Authorities said evidence from the ongoing investigation strongly suggests that the alleged victim is 33-year-old Chris Kidwell, who had been living on Taylor's property since late last year. Officials added that confirmation of the victim's identity is still pending. Kidwell's family contacted the sheriff's office on March 20th after they had been unable to reach him for about a week. Investigators believe the alleged victim was shot before his body was burned, according to the district attorney's office. In a March 23rd statement shared on Facebook, the Butte County Sheriff's Office said deputies responded to the property after a citizen reported finding human remains and later obtained a search warrant for two parcels on Ricky Road. The sheriff's office said following an extensive investigation, detectives located evidence leading them to believe that Joseph Taylor was responsible for the murder of the victim. Authorities noted that Taylor was already in custody at the Butte County Jail on an unrelated felony arrest warrant at the time of the investigation. According to court records reviewed by People magazine, that warrant is tied to a separate felony arson case stemming from August 2025. Prosecutors charged Taylor with arson, and a judge later found there was sufficient evidence for the case to proceed to trial. He has pleaded not guilty in that case. Records show Taylor failed to appear at a scheduled hearing in March 2026, prompting a judge to issue a bench warrant for his arrest. Proceedings in that case have since been delayed and rescheduled multiple times and remains ongoing. He was subsequently booked on one count of murder in connection with the discovery of the remains, to which he has pled not guilty, and is scheduled to return to court on April 2nd, which is passed already, to set a date for a preliminary hearing. He faces a potential life sentence if convicted and is being held without bail due to severity of the charges and pending arson cases in Lake County. The investigation remains ongoing, and authorities are asking anyone with additional information to contact the Butte County Sheriff's Office. People has reached out to the Sheriff's Office for additional information. So let's see what. So basically, Joseph Dexter is really got himself hemmed up on these charges here. Here's what we got. The remains were intentionally burned, according to police. That's a detail investigators say strongly suggests an attempt to conceal the victim's identity and the cause of death, which we all know the victim was shot first. Detectives processed the scene for accelerants, tools, and any material that survived the fire, including metal fragments, clothing remnants, or personal items. The suspect was identified early. Well, that's still pending because we don't know that for certain. The police saying evidence tied him directly to the location where the remains were found. The suspect was identified early, not the victim. Investigators are still working to identify the victim using forensic anthropology, dental records, and DNA testing. As of right now, they're thinking the victim is 33-year-old Kidwell, but that hasn't been confirmed yet. The area where the remains were found is known for illegal dumping, which initially complicated the search until officers realized the fire was connected to a homicide. Police have not released a motive, saying the suspect and victim were known to each other. Additional charges may follow depending on what the medical examiner determines about the manner and timing of death. So until we get more information, as the investigation continues, we will keep an eye on this particular case. Next, the judge says that the trial plan for Jared Britton's murder trial doesn't make any sense. What could have brought the judge to make that? A Florida judge openly questions the entire roadmap for trying the Brittigan murder case. Give me one. Okay, a Florida judge openly questions the entire roadmap for trying the Brittigan murder case. A rare blunt rebuke that signals the court sees major flaws in how prosecutors plan to present one of the nation's most complex murder for hire prosecutions. During a pretrial hearing, the murder of Microsoft executive Jared Brittigan, the judge sharply criticized the state's proposed trial structure, saying the plan doesn't make any sense. Prosecutors are preparing to try Mario Fernandez Saldana, accused of orchestrating the ambush killing, while co-defendant Shauna Gardner awaits her own trial. The judge's comments came as the court reviewed scheduling, witness sequencing, and the state's approach to handling overlapping evidence across multiple defendants. Here's what we got here. Jacksonville, Florida. With just months to go until the trial for two people charged in the murder of Microsoft executive Jared Brittigan, attorneys in the case are struggling to agree on how the trial itself will play out. Brittigan's ex-wife, Shauna Gardner, and her husband, Mario Fernandez Saldana, are accused of hiring their tenant, Henry Tenon, to murder the victim, who was shot to death while driving home in February 2022. Prosecutors built their case around Tenon, who initially confessed to his alleged role in the shooting and had agreed to plead guilty and testify against both Gardner and Fernandez Saldana. But 2 years after his arrest, Tenon withdrew his guilty plea and told prosecutors that he was no longer going to cooperate with their case. First, that led to prosecutors dropping their intent to seek the death penalty against Gardner and Fernandez Saldana, and now it's creating problems for how the state planned to present its case to the jury. At a pretrial hearing on Tuesday, Judge London Kite expressed her concerns about how Tenon's change in plea could impact the other defendants. I can't have someone who is not set for trial slowing down cases that are set for trial, charged in the same indictment, Kite said. Fernandez Saldana's attorney, Jesse Dreiser, then revealed that prosecutors plan to split the couple's cases. They no longer intend on trying these cases together, and that's by agreement of the parties, he told the court. Okay, when was somebody going to let me know? A frustrated Kite responded. Assistant State Attorney Alan Mizrahi explained that he planned to have the jury selection for both Gardner and Fernandez Saldana simultaneously before proceeding with Fernandez Saldana's case. The Gardner jury would wait and then be recalled to serve at the conclusion of the Fernandez Saldana's case, at which point the second case would begin. The time frame, Your Honor, is going to be virtually identical, Mizrahi assured Kite. But Jose Baez, representing Shauna Gardner, said he had a problem with the plan. We would like to, rather than picking the juries at the same time and having a Gardner jury wait and perhaps create a whole slew of issues, we would like to go immediately following the Fernandez trial. We could then pick the jury right then and there and proceed like a normal trial. Mizrahi opposed that idea, saying the time frame is completely different if you have two different jury selections. That completely moves the time frame several days, probably. Kite says she would not make any ruling either way because any change would have to come via formal filing. It needs to be by motion, not agreement, Kite said, because what has brought them together is a joint indictment. And so if you want separate trials, it needs to be by motion. The larger issue, Ms. Rahi said, is if Gardner and Fernandez Saldana are tried together, the juries will have to be brought in and out of the courtroom repeatedly. This is not a case or a situation where we're going to be able to shuffle a jury out for a witness or shuffle a jury out for a part of our opening. The core of the Gardner case is inadmissible in the Fernandez case. We're talking about at least 6 witnesses, if not more, Ms. Rahi explained. The reason that we charge them together is obviously they are co-defendants, as well as Mr. Tennant was testifying. There was a logical reason to keep them together because he was a testifying witness in both. Without him, it becomes less of a priority for the state to keep them together. But Ms. Rossi also argued that completely severing the cases would be a waste of time and resources because the direct questioning of police and ministerial witnesses would be identical. So you're not asking to sever. You're just asking to try them separately, Kite said. That doesn't make any sense. Kite told the attorneys to either file a motion or reach an agreement before the parties return to court on April 9th. The judge's frustration was procedural, not evidentiary. She questioned how the state intends to present a coherent narrative when the prosecution's plan appeared disorganized and internally inconsistent. The Britigan case is unusually complex, involving a murder-for-hire conspiracy, multiple defendants, a cooperating shooter in Henry Tennant, who has since wavered, overlapping digital, forensic, and financial evidence, and 2 separate trials which shared witnesses. The court signaled it will not allow a chaotic presentation, warning prosecutors that jurors cannot be expected to untangle a disjointed timeline or unclear theory of the case. This is not a setback to the charges, but it is a warning shot. The state must tighten its strategy before trial. The judge emphasized efficiency and clarity, noting that the public interest and the victim's family deserve a trial plan that is logical, streamlined, and respectful of the jury's time. The ruling does not change the November 2026 trial trajectory, but it does force the prosecution to reorganize how they intend to tell the story of the ambush, the conspiracy, and the alleged masterminds behind it. This is a rare moment where the judge essentially says, get your house in order before we bring it to a jury. And if I were a judge, I would be saying the exact same thing. Get it together before you put it in front of a jury. And finally, the last case on our Dirty Dozen, there will be no new trial for a police officer convicted of a teen's murder. A former police officer convicted of killing a teenager will not get another chance before a jury. Oh, good. A former police officer convicted of killing a teenager will not get another chance at a jury. The judge shuts the door on a new trial, saying the evidence and the law do not justify reopening the case. Here's what happened. A judge has denied a motion for a new trial filed by a former police officer convicted of murdering a teen. The defense argued that errors during the original trial, including evidentiary rulings and witness issues, warranted a do-over. After reviewing the filings, the judge ruled that none of the alleged problems rose to the level required to overturn the verdict or restart the case. The conviction stands and the officer remains in custody, awaiting the next phase of the legal process, which will likely be sentencing. Here's the article. The last case of our Dirty Dozen is in Lawrenceville, Georgia. A former police officer convicted of killing a teenager is now planning to take his appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court after his appeal was denied. 25-year-old Miles Bryant was convicted of malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping, and concealing the death of another in the death of 16-year-old Susana Morales. Bryant pleaded not guilty at trial. In his motion for a new trial, Bryant argued inadequate assistance of counsel, arguing his attorney should have objected to testimony from the medical examiner during the trial. Dr. Carol Terrier had listed Morales' death as undetermined following the autopsy, but said in her testimony, "I'm very suspicious of strangulation, chest impression, suffocation, smothering, something of that nature. And I just do not have a body in a condition where I can prove that or disprove that." Dr. Terry further said, "These circumstances are very suspicious for homicidal violence, but I can't prove it because of the condition of the remains." Bryant's appellate attorney argued that the testimony was inappropriate and his trial attorney's failure to object constituted error. Tracy Drake, who represented Bryant at his trial, told the jury during opening statements, "At the conclusion of this trial, you will think that he's the most callous, uncaring coward that you have ever seen," and said, "You're going to hear from Miles Bryant. He's going to tell you exactly what happened." But Bryant never took the stand to testify. His defense called no witnesses and presented no evidence. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on 4 of the 5 counts Bryant faced. He was acquitted of a charge of criminal attempt to commit rape. Morales disappeared while walking home from a friend's apartment on July 26, 2022. Her remains were found nearly 20 miles away in February 2023. Bryant lived in the apartment complex that Morales had visited. At the time of her disappearance, worked as a courtesy officer there. The two had no prior relationship. Bryant worked as a police officer in Doraville, but was fired immediately after his arrest. While no brief has been filed with the court yet, Bryant's appellate attorney has already filed a notice of appeal indicating the defendant plans to bring his case to the Georgia Supreme Court. All right, now here are the details. The defense motion focused on procedural challenges, claiming the jury was exposed to prejudicial information and that certain testimony should have been excluded. The judge rejected each argument, stating the trial was conducted properly and that the verdict was supported by substantial evidence. Prosecutors emphasized the strength of the case, noting that eyewitness accounts, forensic findings, and the officer's own statements all align with the jury's decision. The ruling means the conviction is now firmly in place, even though he's going to the Georgia Supreme Court for another appeal. The ruling means the conviction is firmly in place, with next steps likely involving sentencing or continued appeals at the appellate level rather than the trial court. The victim's family expressed relief, saying they fear the case might be dragged out even longer. And the officer's legal team may still pursue higher court appeals, which we just mentioned. But those processes are lengthy and rarely result in overturned murder convictions. The clean takeaway: the court has spoken, the conviction stands, and this case will move forward without a reset. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is gonna wrap up the Dirty Dozen, and that's going to wrap up this edition of Saturday night's main event. I want to thank you all for joining me here this evening. See if I could. I thought I was catch somebody on here for in the chat, but as I get ready to bounce out, but that will not be the case. But I do want to shout out a chatter by the name of allegedly, in my opinion. I forgot the back end number, but he was in the chat yesterday for the final word. I missed his comments completely, but I'm shouting you out tonight. Good to have you on. in the drama-free true crime destination. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's do this again next time, same place. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for Saturday night's main event. This week's most compelling cases broken down with the depth, clarity, and the drama-free focus you expect. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I thank you for making this a part of your Saturday night. I'm Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw. This is Bethea'S Byte. And it's reloaded. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and Cash App. You can get your true crime news right here with no gimmicks, no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.